Okay, there we go. Welcome back to episode, who knows what we're up to. What is this? Episode 7, 8, 6?
7?
7?
I might have skipped a few. For me, it's maybe 5. It might be 7.
Up by 1.
Excellent. Today we've got Pat joining us from sunny Florida, although it's currently not sunny.
Nighttime.
Nighttime. He's at a pool party, but he's dialed in because he's committed. I love it. It's great.
Committed.
Craig's joining us and wanting, he's cementing his membership in Runtime Reverie as the founding partner who just got in a couple episodes late and is there forever.
It's like Elon Musk.
Yeah. I'll get you to contract, call me Chief Engineer.
Chief Engineer Craig, love it. Yeah. Fantastic. And your host, Armin, who does not like playing host. So I wish somebody else would take it. That would be great. So Craig, what was the first topic? Something about TypeScript.
Yeah, look, I was spending last night, I was just watching through the Twitter feed and watching the blowback for poor DHH putting in a pull request to get rid of TypeScript out of Turbo. And yeah, there's a lot of opinions on whether a TypeScript was of any value or not, but yeah, entertaining to watch.
Right.
I don't know. Do you see that all?
I've been out of the Ruby ecosystem for a few years.
It's not just the Ruby. Like there's a bit of a movement with a few of the repos of removing TypeScript because they go it makes the code cleaner or it looks better, or but there are some good reasons, right? Like I think Spot removed it from their repository because of the speed that it took of getting rid of a compile step to build all of that stuff. So that actually improved their delivery speeds and that sort of stuff. Whereas I think DHH's opinion on this one was the code looked a lot better without TypeScript and he didn't have to make the types work. Right. So I was talking about type gymnastics, and I thought, actually, if you're complaining that TypeScript's complaining about you, that's the whole purpose of TypeScript. Is complaincy. Like to me, it's like it's actually just testing, right? It's a layer of testing that sits above letting you know what's right and wrong. And I hate TypeScript, but I sort of love it. Like it's a little love-hate thing. And you go, yeah, I hate working with it because it just tells me how bad I am as a programmer sometimes. It's
type safety. Type safety is a good thing. And everyone who doesn't like it, and then tries to shovel it in the back end by having some sort of schema validation thing, or
the approach they were advocating was actually replacing it with JS.doc comments, right, for your parameters, and using those JS.doc comments to generate a TypeScript definition file on the output. But your actual code is not there. But to me, that
I'm okay with that.
The fun of TypeScript of like when you press dot, it tells you things, and you pull down in your editor and you get the little red squiggly lines of humility that tell you you're not good at your programming. There's a lot to TypeScript. There's a reason it was good. I remember what it was like beforehand. I remember opposing TypeScript, thinking we're just going to do JavaScript, and eventually you come around.
What are you okay with, Pat? You're okay with Jay's comments representing types?
JS.doc, I think that's what Svelte migrated to, because there's a sort of argument that's in the community of JavaScript library authors where they say like using TypeScript internally is a bit of a pain in the ass because you have to have types everywhere, but you only sort of need types for the actual interface of your library. Internally, it could be doing whatever crimes it wants. So that's what they did with JS.doc, where they just annotate the public exported functions, and then everything else is sort of loosey-goosey. And that's just, for them, it's just the best of, they get the TypeScripts because the users want TypeScripts, but they don't have to fight, making every single type absolutely correct.
Well, for them, it was the build step taking up time, right? TypeScript as a compiler isn't the speediest thing, and it does slow you down, right? Yeah. And when your project gets really large, that can be pretty annoying. Like you just want to go bang, bang, bang. But there's a trade-off as well, right? And that's with any technology. Nothing's perfect. There's always pros. There's always cons.
It's impressive to me, though, that TypeScript's written in JavaScript. And you would think, like, some sort of compiler and JavaScript's not going to be that fast. But it's impressive how fast it is, given that.
The world will be good. There's an ECMAScript proposal out there to actually add type systems to JavaScript natively. And that should, like, TypeScript was always supposed to be a temporary thing, right? But that's still like 5 years out, and a long, if everything goes perfect. And even then, I don't think it'll go perfect, right?
That type, because it's that proposal, when I saw it, it's saying like the types are just comments, like they don't really mean anything. That sort of seems like a maybe not the best idea, because JSON, when JSON was created, they chose, you know, it's obviously a subset of JavaScript, and the creator chose not to add comments because he kind of knew it would become like this. The comments would become this like user machine, like for holding instructions that, you know, they weren't just for humans, but they were for machines. And then they would get like really complicated, and then like your comments wouldn't work with my comments. So like that JavaScript idea, I don't know, like all I've heard is the sort of the 10,000-foot view version of it, but I'm not. Yeah,
I think that's kind of where they're at too, right? Like it's a coordinating all people to try and make this thing happen is a monumental undertaking. It's hard. It's difficult. I don't want to get involved in that, right? I'll just go, I'll wait till you smart guys get that ready, and if it's ready, I'll start using it. But at least there's work in JavaScript space to try and make that stuff a little bit more native. In the meantime, TypeScript will live and thrive.
The other thing is like the idea of adding these types, but they're kind of useless. Like it's going to add bloat to your bundles that are shipped to users, but the types don't really do anything. Like it sort of seems like a bit of a weird. Like ideally, the JavaScript you ship to users' browsers is as small as possible. So it's sort of, it seems a bit, I don't know if that's the best idea. And
this is all legacy crap from trying to bolt something onto a language that should have had it from the start and just didn't, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it's just you're left with legacy baggage.
Oh my goodness, I'm impressed that JavaScript still exists from the beginning, because like I remember when it was coming out, and you know, your Netscapies and those sort of things, and you're going, they'll invent something better.
They'll invent something better, but
yeah, we've still got JavaScript, and it's how resilient is that it lasts.
Not only that, there's a theory that it might be the ultimate programming language to rule them all and be everything in the future.
I doubt that there will ever be such a thing, is there?
But it's just its legacy was never put in there from the start, and so it's being bolted on. And because it's been bolted on, it's not a first-class thing. It's slow. It's a bit shit. Yeah, right.
Spent millions of dollars making it fast, though. Like the amount of stuff that they've added to all the different layers of just-in-time compilation and stuff like is nuts. So if they didn't have that, it would be quite a slow language. And that's where I feel
how hard it is for pure JavaScript to deal with its runtime when it doesn't actually know what type things are.
Exactly, and that's why this type proposal seems weird. That you're going to add these types, and then it's going to bloat the stuff for the users. So it's useless for users, and it's not going to be used for the optimizer either. So that
you want it in the compiler. The compiler is the thing that needs to know what type things should be.
Yeah. So the runtime is going to be like, hey, I think this thing might be an int. I think this thing might be an int, and it's going to have like no idea, even though it's going to be staring right in its face in the types, and it's going to be, it's just going to be like, oh, I don't know what that is. Well, if only I knew what the type was.
Hey, speaking of types, let's move on. Elixir Conf, you're there now. Elixir is going to be, you know, awesome. Taking the world by storm. What's it like there?
So I have to work out how to get you two guys to start using it, because there's lots of people hiring in America for it, but there's not many people in Melbourne hiring for it. I think that was the Theme Forest people. Not sure if they're still using it, but yeah, the conference has been awesome. I think of it's sort of like some of the Ruby community, but with better opinions. So
yeah, it was sort of grown from the Ruby people, right? So the people who left Ruby, ironically, because it was a bit slow and stuff, and you know, it lost its luster, moved over and did a lot of core stuff in Elixir. Ironically, I moved out of Ruby because it was getting a bit slow on certain things, and yet somehow I'm in JavaScript. I don't know how that was a win. But I love Elixir as a language so much. Like until I did Elixir, I don't think my JavaScript was very good.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And you take those disciplines that were in that and apply it to another language, and you just go, oh wow, it's a new lease of life. Not not a lot of jobs in Melbourne for that here, because if you start a project, your project isn't about, when you choose your technology, it's not necessarily about the actual technology itself. It's also about people, hiring, all those other little problems you've got to solve in order to build a business that will survive and go long, and generally end up at JavaScript.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Or
Interesting.
.NET maybe. Yeah.
I do admire the community though. It's got a unique culture around Elixir, and
There's been a lot of talk on machine learning. It's been really cool. Like that you can train models using like there's a subset of Elixir called NX, and so that stuff can run on the GPU. So you can train models, you can run models. It's like really cool stuff.
a lot of smart people on it too. I remember Armin telling me once that sometimes you want to choose the opposite language, not one where you've got the most people, but one where you've got the least,
Okay.
right? So you choose the technology that attracts the right people. I reckon Elixir is one of those.
Like a
Often that's a consideration, right? When you're starting a project, what can you hire for? Right? Just because you want to do it in obscure language X doesn't mean you should pick it, because you might not be able to hire for it. It's a primary consideration.
But it might also be like what Craig's saying. You might, if the language is from people with good taste, then it might be easier to find other people with good taste. Everyone's a JavaScript programmer, so it doesn't mean you're a bad programmer, but doesn't mean you might be pretty average.
Yeah, I reckon there's a concept that I haven't heard anywhere, like of minimum viable community, right?
Yeah.
Instead of minimum viable product, right? You need enough so that you can actually move around, get jobs, that sort of stuff, communicate with others, and have a vibrancy in that community. If it drops below that level, you just sort of can't, right? Yeah. And if it goes big and mainstream, then you're also fighting with everyone else too. So there's a nice sweet spot in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Hey, so Craig, the other next topic, I want to hear the story. So you're battling a challenge at work about upgrading a project.
Yeah, we've got a big project, right? And it's not legacy; it's our current product, right? But it's been deliberately not upgraded for a very long period of time, right?
Why would anyone deliberately not?
It's actually there is an argument where you can do that, right?
I just need to remind Craig just quickly that we don't have the advanced technology of the All In podcast, so we won't be able to beep out every second person you name drop. So yeah, just make sure you just beep yourself out.
Self-beep.
I don't swear that much until I tried to upgrade something and it didn't work. But yeah, the concept is if you just go so fast because you've got an opportunity in front of you, you let certain fires burn, right? And one of the fires that was let burn was not devoting effort to refactoring, cleaning up after ourselves, and upgrading. So the general hygiene of a long-term product. It was basically prioritizing short-term gain over long-term value, right?
I've never heard of any place, like, consulted in lots of places. There was never that problem.
Yeah, everyone always cares about the long term.
I am going to ask, has anyone worked with Patrick who has anything legacy that needed to be fixed?
Well, I remember whenever you talk to the CEO of a place, they're always like, tech debt, the most important thing, Nothing about the bottom line.
How many times have you heard this story? How many times have you heard this? Oh, this project, this thing we're building, this is only for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, it's going to get replaced by X. It'll never be around after that. So you don't have to care about long term.
Yeah.
5 years later, it's still running, and it's running the entire business on some piece of shit.
Yeah, but then you get to a point like where I was at, where I just wanted to bump up the level of TypeScript we were using, right, on one project, right, that was included. And all of the shortcuts that were sort of lying around just conspired to break, right? So it was in a separate project, in a separate repo, being included in via a GitHub commit hash, right? Which actually lent that whole project to being pulled into the base project, being compiled in place, but it didn't support the new version of TypeScript. So I couldn't update it on one without updating the other, but I couldn't update the one on the base project because it had dependencies that were not compatible with the other project. It was not good, right? So you have to actually sort of plan how to try and tackle these things, and it's not easy. It's really hard, and that came down to we separated, we upgraded the dependent project, we shipped compiled code. Like just using all of the ecosystem. It took a couple of weeks.
I've got the solution. There was a solution that I saw on Twitter the other day. It's by this guy called DHH, and he just removed TypeScript.
Yeah, that surprisingly that could have actually worked, but probably not the approach I wanted to take. And but you solve that sort of thing, but then you look at the parent project, all right, and it is massive, and you're going, I don't want to leave this for the next person. How do I fix this? And then you get to a spot, you're going, well, and you get a laundry list of things that you've got to do, and you get to this decision, you're going, is it worth it? All right, and I think I'm at that point where I'm going, no, it's not. We just build a new container with all completely new stuff and slowly move it along. And I think the bit that switches your mind and thinking was, I was watching a talk with John Romero. I don't know if you've seen that, about the history of ID software. And
we should link that talk.
That's my pick of the week there, right? It's such a good talk because I don't know, Pat probably too young, right? But every game they came out with was genre defining, right? It was something brand new that hadn't been done before, that we all look back on our childhood going, I remember Wolfenstein, Commander Keen, Quake, all of these things, just, Doom, running on pregnancy kits now. It's still going strong, right? But every game they started, they basically, like in his talk, was basically, we start again from scratch, right? Because all the things they built previously was based on, they hadn't invented what they invented, so they didn't have the knowledge. So everything they built was based on not having enough knowledge. And at the end of it, they had the knowledge that they wanted. So why start the next game built on the foundations of what you didn't know, right? Rather than what you did know, and it was better to start again. And I think that concept of renewal has to come into it at some point. Sometimes there is a case where building something fresh alongside actually is beneficial and cheaper and the right way to go, rather than trying to go through and upgrading everything and you just go, all right, let's flush out what we've got.
One of my pet peeves is when people say something's a refactoring and it's just actually a rewriting, because they're just too afraid of using that word. Oh, we refactored the database schema. It's like, no, you just...
No one's going to approve this project.
Yeah.
It's going to have to prove that it's going to work.
No, but sometimes you just need to rewrite bits. Just don't rewrite everything.
Yeah.
Well, most organizations have a allergic reaction to the word rewrite. You can't say that. Yeah.
We got to call it something else. Give it story points or something.
Yeah. Everything is 3 points or
It's a difficult decision to try and if you put forward and saying, I want to rewrite the whole thing that we've got, right, and do another one. The absolute answer is no. We're not doing that, because it's such an impossible problem. But the problem is that when people say no, they actually don't understand that the problem they're going, should we be up to date? Go, of course, you should be doing that all the time. But we haven't for the last 5 years.
Yeah. Let me give you a counter example, though. And this is the case. I've seen this now twice in sort of local Australian businesses, but established big businesses that have significant code bases. They've realized they need to move to a new platform. Often it's, between technologies, or it's a big significant step change. And so they decide that obviously the best thing to do is to rewrite it all. And they throw out decades and decades of code and start again from scratch. And inevitably, and I've seen this go wrong nearly every time, the new product, version 2, is not feature compatible or has feature parity with the old product. Because they don't have another 20 years to spend on trying to get faster.
And the knowledge of the people who are building that has disappeared. Right?
That's right. It's 20 years old because it's had 20 years of fixes and patches and updates and thinking and thought put into every little piece.
Yeah.
You might not be aware of every one of those things, and you're rebuilding. So there's a real challenge there. And upgrading little by little is also difficult.
Yeah. But at the same time, you can get disrupted by a player that's newer, that you've been around for 10 years, and then they do the new thing and they're able to move quickly because they're just doing it from scratch and they just copy your features.
And ignorance is a powerful personal attribute sometimes. Just barreling in there, not knowing what you're up for, and then you're halfway in. And if you had have gone back in the start and thought about it, you probably wouldn't have done it. But your ignorance has helped you to get through that hard part, and now you're into the last leg, and you'll get it done. It might break you, but it's helpful. I think the important bit is to find the seams of where you can demarcate things that you can do and things that you can't, so it doesn't consume a forever project.
Yeah.
But, you know, so go, am I going to change the API? Hell no. All right. Should I at some point? Because that's also got a problem to it. Should I put in another layer of API? Probably not. Maybe it's not a decision for me. Like, where do I put these seams? Do I rebuild all screens that are in an app? Or can I just up and move them? Can I do things? And then for me, the first thing is going murderous intent. Delete everything. Delete everything that's not used. Kill off old features. Like that, if I can kill that, then the less you have to look after is better. You get to go at least a bit faster.
Yeah, and try and ship something soon, right? Like just try and, even if you're rewriting stuff, like try and don't make it like a 2-year thing, and then you're like, okay, on this date we're going to do this like big relaunch, like it's like sort of like the big release. It's like the big re-release. Like try and ship like one little small part of the rewrite, like in a couple of months.
Yeah. It's also a bit of cultural too, like, because you don't want to actually, let's assume you magically have something brand new and it's all perfect. You don't want in 5 years to have the same problem again, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to do a little bit of a cultural uplift along the way of why it's going to be. So you actually want to encourage this killing of features and refactoring as you go along into your development cycles, so that it doesn't get out of hand, that you can keep that velocity rolling faster and faster as you go along, and bigger. Otherwise it just drags down, and that's the death of your company too. If you can't ship a feature fast enough, you're always going to be behind someone else. So you want to have that thing going forward, and sometimes you need to change the way you work. You know, like I've seen people who do like that shape up methodology with 6-week sprints instead of 2-week sprints. But, you know, I've seen people who do, you know, to allocate a bit more time for that refactoring and cleaning. But I've seen other people who have like a sprint time long enough to do a feature, but also have 2-week gaps in between it, and going, everyone's pitching in and just cleaning it up, fixing things, making sure it's right, making sure the bugs, the customers are happy before attempting the next thing. I think that's a big thing to do as part of doing it.
Well, I hope it goes well. Pull this project off, do the rewrite, but think about getting it all moved over.
Oh, it's hard.
In limbo.
Yeah.
Pat, you got muted because there's too much background noise. Unmute when you want to talk. But this has been an interesting conversation. Anything else on the docket for today?
No, I think my pick would be that the beers here are actually pretty good. I've been surprised. So yeah,
Oh my God,
beers.
American beer. What the hell?
Yeah. What's everyone else's pick?
Interesting things for the week that we've seen. I don't know. I haven't prepped one for today. I don't know. Too many interesting things.
Well, I'll throw down that John Romero talk for everyone to have a look at. Like, it's one of those talks you should watch and then come back and watch it in 5 years' time. You know, there's a few of those around. Is
this the one where he describes how him and the others built the software and how they sat around and worked, and the formation of the
yeah, and answer questions like, how did your version control system work? And it was like,
that's right.
Whosever computer it was working on.
They took a disk, they copied it, they gave it to me.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, a floppy disk, Patrick, is a thing to store information on. Yeah.
I had, so we used to have at my high school a crappy digital camera that took those floppy disks. Like you take a photo and put it on the floppy disk.
Oh yeah, what size floppy disk? Did you know they came in different sizes?
Yeah, just the small one, whatever the most recent one was.
Yeah,
1 1/4.
I think I've got one floating around here for you. I'll show you a few.
Computers behind you that accept them. So
yeah.
Oh wow! I still remember when PCs stopped having floppy drives, and it was a contentious point in time. A lot of people complained, why does my PC not have a floppy drive? I don't understand. What am I supposed to do? And then why does my PC not have a CD drive? What do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember buying a whole bunch of like Microsoft Excel floppy disks, even though there was nothing to look at them on, just for the nostalgia.
Awesome. Great conversation, guys. Let's wrap it up. And don't have too much fun in Florida, Pat. Do come back to Australia, and we'll see you all soon.
All right. Bye all.
Cool. See ya.